and welcome to the Monday Total Soccer Show. I am Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who, for some reason, is only in his underwear. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Took me half a second to realize what you were talking about, because for a minute I was like, no, I'm not. I'm wearing pants. I thought you were like messing with me and trying to throw the listeners off. Now I know. You're just referencing Gary Lineker.
Yeah, so I'm thinking most soccer fans will be aware of this, but Gary Lineker, who presents Match of the Day, the Premier League highlight show on the BBC, said last season that if Leicester win the Premier League, he will present Match of the Day in his underwear.
Yep.
And good as his word, he did that this past Saturday evening.
Yes. I have to feel a little bit. I thought about this a lot. And I've decided that, because Leicester won it with a few games to go.
Yeah.
And I think maybe he thought, not quite yet.
Yeah.
I'm going to spend this summer really working out, really getting ready for it. And I have to say, that should be a diet plan. Like, there should be some television network that's like, we will give you 5 minutes of airtime, and that means that you have 6 months to get into the best shape of your life. And that would really work, I think.
Someone did tweet at him, 4,000 sit-ups for 30 seconds of television, because he got changed after the first game. But we can assure you, Taylor and I are both fully clothed, and we are here to review the opening weekend of the Premier League. We're going to look at the biggest games. We're going to talk about Arsenal-Liverpool. We are going to talk about Hull v Leicester and how that happened, because that was the big surprise, right? We're going to talk about Pep Guardiola's debut, Man City's win over Sunderland, and we're going to talk about United's win over Bournemouth. We're also going to name Mac Weldon Premier League Player of the Weekend. We have one each. There is no agreement here at the Total Soccer Show.
There never will be. So now you have to agree or disagree.
Yes, there will. See, I've created a paradox.
Good job.
And later in the show, we will have scouting reports and a mention of Everton-Tottenham, which was the first game I watched this weekend. I overslept for Hull Leicester. 7:30, come on. Before we get into Arsenal-Liverpool, can we talk about the biggest upset of the weekend, which is the Lion trying to attack me from my TV? The new Premier League logo swoosh.
Maybe not the biggest upset, but the most upsetting. And I have to say, I don't really appreciate that you brought this to my attention, because it is one of those things where I hadn't really noticed it, the Lion zooming in at me after every single replay or before every single replay. And then as soon as you mentioned it, it was all I could see. And now it really is sort of like, can we stop? Can we stop with this?
And I realise what's so offensive about it. It's not actually that I'm scared of the Lion coming for me. I don't think...
It's not like the 1920s train movie?
Yeah.
Everyone's get out of the way?
I think it was earlier than that, but yes.
1910s? Is that the Great Train Robbery?
No, it's just train pulling into a station. That's literally what the movie is.
It's a terrible name for a movie.
Well, it was the first one. So it's not actually that I think the Lion's going to eat me. Yep. It's not like The Ring. Yep. But it is that the screen goes all white, right? So essentially what they're doing is flashing white on your screen, like a strobe effect.
Yeah.
It's like the opening credits of 6 Feet Under.
You could go that way. You could go the closing credits of Arrested Development, or you could go, and what I'm going to go with is like the first time you use Microsoft Movie Maker or Windows Movie Maker, and you're like, Star Wipe. Like, that's what it feels like a little bit. It's just sort of like...
It's when Homer Simpson does the editing for Lisa's movie.
Exactly. That's what it feels like a bit. And it just, I think it's also because it's not the logo. I mean, it is the logo, but it's not like, we're used to like Premier League, or like it's a little bit more of an official looking thing. So to see the lion head coming at you, it's just a bit more like, whoa, what's happening here? Is this a cartoon show all of a sudden? I'm confused.
Well, all of those things could also apply to Arsenal's opening season home defeat to Liverpool. This was the game that really felt like the Premier League was back, right?
Yeah.
A lot of 1-1 draws and narrow wins before this. But Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern, it finished Arsenal 3, Liverpool 4. And there was much irateness on the internet afterwards. Arsenal fans very, very, very much not happy. So we're going to break down pretty much how this happened, right? How did this happen to Arsenal? Because they took an early lead through Theo Walcott, who got 2 chances to put Arsenal in the lead. Continue free kick just before half-time. And then the first 15 minutes of the second half, Liverpool scored 1, 2, 3 times.
Yes, sir.
Made it 4-1. And I know there was a semblance of a comeback, but it never really felt like Arsenal were coming back into this.
It's definitely a game where on paper it's like, 4-3, it's a shootout. Everybody was in it. It must have been really exciting.
Yeah.
And then you look at the fact that, Arsenal were booed at home, like during the game, after the game. There was a lot of sort of, you could just tell that fans were a little bit ready to be frustrated, and I think with some cause. And I think that's part of the narrative, is that Arsenal go ahead, maybe everyone's like, okay, well, that seems better. And then as soon as Liverpool score, it just felt like kind of collectively that stadium was like, here we go. See, we knew this was going to happen, and everybody starts to get nervous, and I think the players start to get nervous, and then things go south. And so, I think there's reason for frustration there.
And before we pass judgment on Arsene Wenger and Arsenal's season, it's worth reminding everybody.
First game
of the season, opening weekend, you cannot read too much into it.
Especially because Arsenal...
Hull City will not win 38 games this season, for example.
You don't know that. Right now, they're on track.
If they do, I will present the Total Soccer Show in my underpants.
It's a bold statement. We'll have to get some video cameras in here for that one. And I think it's worth noting, to your point, that Arsene Wenger and Arsenal do not have the greatest of track records, at least in the past 6 or 7 years.
On opening day.
On opening day.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's almost a tradition of new season. Maybe there's some question marks. First game doesn't go well. People get frustrated, and then they tend to right the ship in the sense that they consistently get in that top 4 at least.
Is it maybe karmic? Is it Arsenal fans always celebrate St. Totteringham's Day? You remember seeing all that all over Twitter?
Yep.
The day that Arsenal pass Tottenham in the league. Maybe the recompense for that is that or the punishment for that is that you then lose the opening day.
St. Opening's Day sadness? Yes. Yes.
Okay, let's get into this then.
Sure.
What happened here? Why were Arsenal so impressive first half and so sort of steamrolled early in the second half?
Well, it felt like maybe Theo Walcott had heard somewhere that somebody still had a lot of faith in him, and so he was I can score goals and do stuff.
So I predicted Theo Walcott to be top scorer for Arsenal this season. I heard about it from Arsenal fans because he's going to play on the right wing, not up front. But that didn't stop him finding that channel between Moreno and the left centre-back. I'm not sure if it was Klavan or Lovren playing left centre-back, but he kept getting between those two and getting behind.
Yes. And he did get the goal. He did not convert his penalty, however, which was not ideal. And I think it was also a sign of maybe the frustration for Arsenal fans that I was looking so I watched the video of that, and I was looking at the message boards or the comments underneath the video, and it was why is he taking it? He should have taken it. And then the next comment was no, he missed that one. He should have taken it. No, he missed that one. And it was a lot of not Ozil, Giroud. No, not Giroud, him. And it was just ooh, that's not great when you really are already sort of we don't know who it is.
Yeah.
And I think that actually that kind of ties into a point I think you noticed about Arsenal is that even though they went 1-0 ahead and looked a little bit more confident, they still didn't quite look like maybe a team or at least an organized unit in the way that maybe Liverpool did.
Well, I think they did early on, and I think that goal has everything that they were doing well early on that they didn't do later on, which is specifically stopping Liverpool passing out of the back with sort of high, aggressive pushing and pressing. Because if you notice, it's a Liverpool are about to break, right? I think sort of Marino is sort of tackled better in. The ball goes through to Adam Lallana, and Coquelin is on him immediately with that big slide tackle. And they kept doing that. They kept stopping Liverpool before they'd even got to the halfway line and then shoving the ball back at them. Because that ball then goes to Iwobi, who finds Walcott. And Walcott's in that space behind Moreno because he'd advanced forward, and he's in on goal.
Yes.
And that sort of aggressive Arsenal stuff it stopped everything that Liverpool like to do with Klopp. It stopped them getting forward quickly. They did not do that in the second half.
Right.
I think at some point, maybe after Coutinho's free kick went in, all those Arsenal players did not seem convinced that sort of aggressively tackling high was going to be successful. So they were kind of 70% tackling, not being physical enough.
I think it is, we both know, it's really frustrating when you've got that lead, you're feeling sort of confident. And I think the worst thing that can happen in that situation is you can see that goal, and you go into halftime and think, well, we were playing really well, it was our game, it's a fluke goal, it's a free kick, let's just keep doing what we're doing. And it does feel a little bit like maybe Arsenal came out in that second half a little bit well, it was working the first half. We'll just kind of get it. Oh, they've scored. And it was, and I think Liverpool came out much more energized, much more focused to start that second half and really up for it. And whereas Arsenal maybe were feeling a little bit maybe complacent, a little bit maybe frustrated, they conceded that late goal, but not really positive coming into that second half, whereas it seemed like Liverpool were really up for it.
See, I don't disagree, but I'm also really wary of explaining games.
Argument?
Explaining games in terms of emotion.
Yeah.
I actually do think the experience reason, which I know a lot of people suggested to Arsene Wenger afterwards, especially sort of TV presenters said, was it the inexperienced lineup you put out? Because there's no Mertesacker, no Koscielny, no Gabriel, and you had two centre-backs, Holding and Callum Chambers, who are definitely not the most experienced centre-backs. He sort of refused to accept that was the reason. But if you look at that Coutinho free kick in, the 46th minute, just before half-time, it is Rob Holding giving away a really unnecessary free kick. When he steps to Coutinho and gets his hands on his shoulder, essentially gives away that free kick that Liverpool then score.
Right. Well, here's my question then for you. So I guess the reason why I go to the emotional argument is because it seemed like Arsenal really dropped off that press that you were talking about when it was El Neni and Coquelin putting people under, really not letting Liverpool get comfortable. And it seemed like as that second half went on, the players looked a little less certain of what they were supposed to be doing, who should step when, whose responsibility this guy was. And I can't really figure out a reason for that aside from heads went down, people got nervous, or maybe it is just that there were some young guys there. And like Coquelin, who would have stepped otherwise, is like, I don't know if he's going to know that he needs to step.
Well, maybe these two things tie together, right? Because, like I mentioned, Holding giving away that free kick. I know I saw Iwobi got caught between sort of two players on the it's the Lallana goal, which is kind of the killer goal.
You could narrate that like with comedic effect because you were right. It was it Nathaniel Klein drifting in and then Lallana
drifting down the wing, kind of pulled wide.
And Iwobi like looks back and looks back and looks back and looks back and looks back. Like he doesn't really know what to do, and so he's just watching two guys.
And he does a little shuttle run between the two of them. And I think he just doesn't know what the system is, doesn't know who he's supposed to pick up. And in the end, he gets neither. Adam Lallana runs into the box, and he's on the end of that. I think it's a Wijnaldum cross. Yeah. And it is Iwobi's fault, and I'm sorry to say it because he's such a young, exciting, talented player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so maybe that's it. Maybe it's just kind of lack of familiarity combined with lack of confidence equals lack of a win.
Yeah, and it's not Arsenal's regular system, is it? You don't think of Arsenal as a team they're going to sort of press and win the ball high, but that was what was working for the first 30 minutes. El Neni and Coquelin combine, win that ball, give it to Walcott, and they don't really ever do it again in the second half. It's more like they back off, look confused, look around, not sure who I'm marking, and then Liverpool move the ball in and around and into the back of the net. And
I want to say, again, going back to that scoreline for a second, you look at it and it was 4-3, obviously. Yeah. And again, we said, like, it's not like such... Maybe it was a tighter game. You look at the stats, and it looks like a tight game. Like, Arsenal have just as many passes as Liverpool. I think they have more passes. Like, same number of corners, same number of take-ons. But the big one for me is that I think Liverpool in terms of chances created, I think it was like 16-6 in favor of Liverpool.
That sounds about right.
And I think that's where you get into the idea that Arsenal, for all they were doing, weren't really executing, whereas Liverpool were doing that sort of very Klopp-esque, you raid, you plunder, you get the goals, you take your opportunities when they come. And that's what I think we talked about in those first 15 minutes of the second half. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. They took those opportunities. They plundered.
And no one boom, boom, boomed and plundered more than Mane for the fourth Liverpool goal that really was the backbreaker. Yep. Although Klopp actually managed to catch Mane on his back as part of the celebration.
I feel like you wrote that down, but I don't see it in your notes. So I'll let it slide.
My hands are clean. They really are.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a dribble, it was a cut, it was another dribble, it was a shot. And then the fact that Mane runs to celebrate with Klopp, who himself has run down the touchline. Mm-hmm. And I think you pointed out, he gets increasingly animated with each Liverpool goal to that point. And then to the extent that afterwards... after the game in the post-match interview, he kind of blamed himself for the Arsenal's second and third goals, saying sort of like, I over-celebrated, and I think my players thought like, this is done and dusted.
Is that what it means? It's like he celebrated too much, and it means, all right, it's party time. It's casual Friday for the rest of the game.
Exactly. Yeah, so I think he kind of put it on himself a little bit, which also could just be him being a good, intelligent manager and papering over some of the mistakes there by saying, like, I got too excited because we were scoring amazing goals.
Instead of there being any sort of fragile Liverpool stories, like they nearly threw this away, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but really, weirdly, the focus is on Arsenal, right? Yeah. So I think that's where we have to turn back.
Yeah.
I'm still of the opinion that I think Arsenal fans have overreacted. Mm-hmm. I think Arsenal, it was an inexperience problem, tied in with other things that we talked about. But there's really not that much you can do about it. If you're missing Olivier Giroud, Mesut Ozil, you're missing Mertesacker, Koscielny, Gabriel, Jack Wilshere's not there, Iwobi's starting, Chambers is starting, Rob Holding's starting. We didn't mention Holding got beat by Coutinho for that goal in the second half. Just that's an inexperienced thing. You didn't see Coutinho coming across the front of him. I really think that this will change as the season goes.
Yeah. And I think I've seen a lot of people say, like, so expect Arsenal to make 2 and 3 signings before the window closes. Because we have seen that in the past where they did the kind of panic buy, signing 5 players on deadline day. I don't think you're going to see that, number one, because it's the last year of Wenger's contract. And I don't know if you let... Even if it's Wenger, I don't know if you're the board, you're like, go out and sign a bunch of players and spend a bunch of money on the off chance that maybe we have to bring in somebody new. Yeah. You don't want a bunch of new players in there. But I also just think it's not necessarily what they need. I think they need those veterans back and that consistency in place. I just think it's kind of all of the worst things that could have happened if you're Arsene Wenger have happened, where it's like... no, it's going to be okay because we have these 4 center backs, and as long as those guys all stay fit, we're going to be fine. Mm-hmm. And then he runs into the problem of 3 of those 4 get injured, and now you're in a lot of trouble. And then it kind of plays.
He doesn't even have 4, really, though. He has 3.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but
because Callum Chambers, to me, is kind of a stopgap centre-back.
Yeah, that's fair.
He looked like one today when Mane was running past him on the
outside. That he did. But you know what I mean? I think it sort of is a very unfortunate situation for Wenger, and I know if you're a very frustrated Arsenal fan, you'd say that's a situation that he has created. Mm-hmm. But it does just feel like he has focused his attention elsewhere and tried to tighten up other areas and been like, well, there's no way we're going to have 3 injuries to these guys to start the season. So they're all hurt. That's not great.
What do you make of the idea that Xhaka was the big summer signing and did not start the game? El Neni and Coquelin were preferred ahead of him.
See, that's the talking point that seems to have been ignored. And I think that's the bigger issue because then he comes on, he does commit the most fouls, I think, of any player in the Premier League, despite only playing like 25 minutes.
But isn't that kind of good? Like I was talking about a lack of aggression in the second half, not being fully convinced they were going to win tackles, and maybe we saw El Neni kind of running around but not getting anyone for a good minute. It was kind of embarrassing to watch.
Yeah.
But Xhaka to come on and crunch some people, maybe that is what was needed.
I think it was, and I think
I know that's not what he's all about, right? He's not. I wanted to say De Jong, but even that's harsh on Nigel De Jong. But you know what I'm saying? He's not just a cruncher.
Yeah, and so I think it's a frustrating situation for Arsenal fans because it's exciting to see your new player come on, do things, kind of really work hard. You get a goal while he's on the pitch, so things are looking brighter. By the same token, then the argument becomes like, well, why is he coming on as a substitute? Why is this very expensive player, our only signing of the season or of the window, coming on as a second half substitute?
The other theory I've heard is that some of this is Arsene Wenger's fault because he has imposed too strictly this idea that everybody needs a rest after tournaments. Mm-hmm. That maybe Giroud, Ozil, Koscielny could have come back a little sooner.
Yep. Yeah. So I think there are definitely reasons for concern, but I think, as we've talked about, there are also reasons for optimism, and I think Arsene Wenger will almost certainly right the ship, and then we will have that period where Arsenal have won 6 games in a row, and then the narrative becomes, is this a year? Have they finally figured it out? Has he finally got the combination right? And you kind of swing in the same direction from year to year with Arsenal.
Although, as US national team fans, I've still kind of got my fingers crossed for your proposed John Brooks to Arsenal transfer.
Man, that move makes more and more sense to me as the days go by, but it seems like it's not going to happen. But I do want to say really quickly, because we've talked a lot about Arsenal, and I think we've kind of fallen into that trap, just a little bit of talking about the team that lost, because that sometimes is the narrative.
It's the biggest story.
Whereas I was really weighing whether or not with my season prediction to put Liverpool in the top 4, kind of regretting not putting them in the top 4 now. Finishing in the top 4.
Did you do that?
No, I think I ended up saying that Sadio Mane will be Liverpool's player of the season.
Oh, that was your specific prediction? It was going to be Liverpool in the top 4.
I chickened out because there were 7 candidates in there?
Yeah.
I think Claudio Ranieri said it best when he said, like, we are the underdogs, there are 6 dogs ahead of us. Or 6 or 7 dogs. But it's weird because, number one, Liverpool playing very like a cohesive unit, but you look at that roster and it really does start to, like, when they're all celebrating a goal and you're like, that guy's really good. That guy's really good. Mm-hmm. And you start to see that, like, the number of really good, exciting players has gone from like 4 and 5 to 6 and 7 to 8 and 9, and it's a solid team from top to bottom.
Have we approached 100% clappification of Liverpool FC?
I think we have.
It looked like it in the second half, right?
And it has a little bit, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, a little bit of that, like, cult of personality aspect of it too, where, like, you talked about it, where it's like when he runs down the sideline and then they cut to Wenger drinking his water bottle and looking frustrated.
Yeah.
And it's just like you have...
It's like, I wish Alexis Sanchez would jump on my back.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you've got the guy in the suit and the tie
He's also a younger man.
This is very true, but you've got the guy in the suit and tie looking kind of frustrated and dour, and then there's the younger guy running around with a sweatshirt, like, let's do this, let's all hug and be excited. And it is true that, like, Sadio Mane jukes Adam Lallana, who's trying to celebrate with him because he's trying to run to celebrate with Klopp. And it shows kind of that bond that's there that seems to be strengthening with the Liverpool team.
Oh, how I wish that the Adam Lallana of Sunday had gone to Euro 2016.
If only.
The one that could finish. All right, so Arsenal's next opponents also did not win their opening Premier League game.
Yep.
The first time, I saw Opta tweeted, the first time since the 1950s that the first and second place team from last season have failed to win the opening day of next season, because Leicester lost 2-1 to Hull City. Really a result that no one saw coming. I think we, along with everybody else, we had said Hull City are going to be a disaster. Mm-hmm. They only have something like 13 fit senior players. Mm-hmm. I checked their bench. A lot of those guys were academy players. Did you do the same?
Yep.
And yet,
we had that question of like, how can they only have 13 players? And my answer in my head was because they've got a lot of academy players.
Right.
You're going to see a lot of 0 and 0 in terms of their caps and substitute appearances.
And they had Mike Phelan temporarily in charge, but maybe only temporarily.
It sounds like they're lobbying for him to be given the full-time gig.
Yeah,
the players, that is. Yeah.
So the big question then is, how did Hull City beat Leicester City?
And I'm going to say, maybe this is stubbornness, but I'm going to say my opinion on Hull City has not changed. I think that they are a club that is going to have problems. I think my opinion on Leicester has changed, which is that I think they are a club that is definitely going to have problems. And it seemed
Why so?
like because
I don't disagree, but I'm interested to hear your reasoning.
Because so many of the opportunities in this game for Hull came about because of really poor plays from Leicester, when it was sloppy giveaways, sloppy turnovers, chances that should have been cleared, or defenders that should have done their job and didn't. And similarly, so many opportunities for Leicester that I think last season are buried. Jamie Vardy had 3 that he would have scored last season. And this season he fluffs or shoots over or can't get on the end of.
Or he's got players and bodies in front of him.
Yeah.
The big thing I saw is last season so many times it was Leicester going direct and on the counter. Hull City were not playing that game. Hull City were sitting back. It was always 4 defenders, 5 midfielders usually, 1 up top, and they just sort of let Leicester try and pass through us. And we know from last season, Leicester, they're not Barcelona. They're not a team that can pass and pass and pass and unpick you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, no, they're not. And so I think you started to see them not really getting those opportunities that they did, and even the opportunities they did get weren't taken well.
Yeah.
I'll also say that their goal is a penalty kick taken by Riyad Mahrez. That penalty is not a penalty. That foul is a good yard outside the box, and then the momentum carries him in.
Is it great? He does a really good job of sort of stumbling into the box after his foul.
Yeah, and Tom Wilson did not do a good job of protesting that one. He was just sort of like, "Oh, me? Okay, I guess if you say so." Kind of matched his comments about the preseason, where it just seemed like he's like, "All right, well, I guess so." But again, where it's like that, maybe it's a scoreline that flatters to deceive, because it's a penalty, but it's a penalty that shouldn't have been given. And in the meantime, there's 3 or 4 other opportunities that are missed. And it seemed like a very sloppy game on both sides of the ball.
Right.
So I think Hull played a smart game plan and did that defensive job and frustrated Leicester, and then found their goals when they needed to. But it doesn't make me feel any less like, or any more like, oh, okay, no, Hull can really do this. It felt like a team that got some chances and took them, but still gave the ball away plenty and put in bad challenges and weren't necessarily a composed team overall. 2
guys gave me faith. Curtis Davies, who played centre-back, who at one time was really tipped as like possible future England captain, is how they talked about him back in the day. But he was an absolute rock at the back four. You look at I looked at the key defensive stats on the 442 app. He leads in pretty much every category, like headers won, tackles won, clearances, all that kind of stuff. He also, I think it's his header that is saved by Kasper Schmeichel, and then it's the double Diomande Hernandez double overhead kick, which Diomande got credited with. But it's Davis who gets that sort of attacking header in.
That was some like... I've never actually seen this movie. I've seen like weird gifs of it here and there. That was some like Shaolin soccer stuff. I've never seen a tandem bicycle kick before.
Tandem bicycle.
That's a new. What is it called when there's like the test event at the Olympics, when they're like seeing if it can be see if it can be a sport in the next games. It felt like that, like tandem soccer ball kicking.
Well, Hull City would be top of the league at that, for definite. The other guy I was really, really impressed with, Sam Klukas. So he won't get many headlines, but he's the guy that played defensive midfield for Hull. He had 11 ball recoveries, which I think is testament to how Hull sat back, let Leicester try and pass their way through, and then Leicester would always sort of stumble into giving the ball away, and then Sam Klukas would just take the ball and say, "Thank you very much, I will take that."
I really want a graph of our 442 Stats app usage, because it seems like it pretty much dips completely down in the summer, and that's like the 442 Stats app's off season when it can go out.
Well, it depends if there's a tournament on.
This is true. But generally speaking, like that's when it can go on vacation. It goes to Mallorca for a little bit, and then all of a sudden, season starts and Dale Grove is on that 442 Stats app, because I know you love some ball recoveries.
I do, and it's a good way to use it to either confirm or deny or prove or disprove like feelings you have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like feelings you have about the game. Like I was watching that game thinking, Klukas is like holding his position, seems to be picking up a lot of loose balls. I wonder if like the stats will, because I didn't watch the entire 90-minute game, right? I watched like, chunks, 10 minutes here and there. But then when you see that he had 11 ball recoveries throughout the game, you're like, oh, okay, this is a consistent thing that he did and did well. Thank you for 442 Stats.
I'll say that maybe this is a feeling unique to you and me doing this show. There is nothing more satisfying than like watching a game and picking up on like, ooh, he seems to be doing that a lot. Oh, he's doing this a lot. And then you look at the stats and it's like, yep, that backs up what I was thinking. And conversely, there's nothing worse than like, oh man, he is just winning the ball all over the place. He has so many ball recoveries. And then it's like, ball recoveries, 1. It's like, oh, well, that's not great.
Yeah, being disproved is hard. It's a hard lesson.
Yeah. Then you have to go a certain sports writer's route and be like, here's why I was disproved. And then you have to kind of come up with an argument on the fly. And we'll leave it at that.
That sounds like BS. So the other thing I was thinking about is Hull came into this, the smaller team, thinking, we're playing the champions, we'll sit back. Right, and they did, right? They sat back, like I said, 4-5-1, too many bodies to let Leicester counter. And it almost seems like that's just what teams should have done last year, the whole time. Yep. Instead of playing into Leicester's trap, if you just accept that Leicester are the better team and sit back, and now they don't have Conte, and Ahmed Musa is kind of still learning his way around this Leicester team. He didn't look fully... he wasn't Okazaki in terms of putting pressure on the opposition defence.
And being clinical in his finishing.
Right, yeah. That maybe that's... No, I don't want to say teams have figured them out, quotation marks, but if you can just sit back and accept you got to defend deep against them, I think it could work out.
Yep, I think so.
We'll see what Arsenal do next week.
That will be very, very interesting.
That's the scary one, right? Because I feel like Arsenal are not going to go there and give Leicester the respect of playing many, many men behind the ball, and there still could be problems for them.
Yep. Yeah, and I think you went through the fixtures for next week, and it seems like that's probably the sexiest of the fixtures.
It is definitely the sexiest of the fixtures, yeah. Arsenal-Leicester, so I'll be definitely keeping an eye on that.
Speaking of sexy, let's talk about Pep Guardiola.
All right, so Pep Guardiola made his Manchester City managerial debut, his Premier League managerial debut, and he said he beat Sunderland 2-1, an 87th minute own goal from Paddy McNair, making his debut for Sunderland. Heart goes out to him. Yep. To be fair, Fabian Delph was going to score that if McNair didn't, although he could have cleared it instead, I guess. Guardiola said afterwards, I can't remember the exact phrasing, but it was something like, now I know what the Premier League is like, or something. What was the comment?
I think it's like, now I know why people say the Premier League is so hard.
Right, okay.
I think, yeah. I don't really know what he means by that, aside from that, like, teams are, like, they bunker and they're very physical.
Well, I mean, Sunderland absolutely made him work for this win. Yeah. Or made his team work for this win.
When you say Sunderland, do you mean Manchester United light?
Sort of, yeah. But it's been that way for a few years.
Wes Brown, John O'Shea, Donald Love, Paddy McNair, and Adnan Januzaj, and now David Moyes. It's a team slowly filling up, is all I'm saying.
And I mean, during this Moyes, Januzaj, like a low-rent Scorsese DiCaprio deal, he just believes in him.
He does. I mean, he came out and criticized him, though. He said he needs to get his attitude in check.
Oh, really?
Basically, yeah. He said he needs to like stop blaming others and get his career back on track.
That's interesting, because Januzaj was heavily involved in Sunderland's goal. He sort of did some trickery on the right wing before cutting it back across for Defoe's goal.
So maybe tough love works. Maybe that's what it takes to get through to young Adnan.
So the thing I wanted to ask you, after watching this game, how much like Bayern Munich / Barcelona Guardiola era did Manchester City look in this 2-1 win over Sunderland?
I think about as much as a team could look coming out of a relatively disjointed preseason where you have that like playing here and then jetting here and then playing there, and it being the first game of the season. I'd say the most they probably could look.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I saw it on the team sheet when as soon as I saw Kolarov, left back, playing centre back, alongside sort of ball playing centre back John Stones, I was kind of like, okay, this looks very, very, very Guardiola.
Yeah, it does.
Then I saw Fernandinho. I saw a comment from Guardiola about how Fernandinho can play any position. I feel like he might be a Guardiola favourite. Yeah. I saw him drop between two centre backs like he was Xabi Alonso or Sergio Busquets. I was like, okay, it's very, very Guardiola. And then when I saw right back Bakary Sagna not advancing down the wing but wandering into central midfield, then I knew it was a Guardiola team. The key is Sagna looked kind of confused when he was doing that.
Yeah,
because that to me, that's the weird like hallmark of a Guardiola team, is that he asks his fullbacks to not go down the wing, but to come in as extra central midfielders.
Yeah, and it takes him getting used to. That said, a thing that I hadn't really thought about heading into this season is that I have a feeling, like we talked about, or at least I talked about, maybe you just sat there and listened to me talk for 10 minutes, that like part of the problem that Jose Mourinho is going to have is breaking Manchester United out of that Louis van Gaal model where we started to see them slide into that a little bit in the Community Shield with the sideways passing.
Yeah.
With City, where they knew that Pellegrini was out, where it seemed like most of them kind of maybe stopped trying a little bit, and Pellegrini maybe stopped trying to like really like assert his authority. It makes me wonder if you have 4 months of sort of, we got a new guy coming in, if that kind of clears it out for you a little bit. So you're starting again from like, okay, what do you need me to do, coach? And it's not like 2 months ago I had this guy screaming at me to do this, and now this month I have you screaming at me to do the opposite.
Yeah.
If you don't have that kind of the earlier guy screaming at you, I wonder if it allows you to be a little bit more up for change and up for new things.
I think emotionally, yes, but I think a lot of Guardiola's instructions are kind of complicated and go against your instincts. Like, I really do think Sanya did what he was told by going into central midfield from right back.
Yeah.
To like have extra men in the middle, but he really looked like a little bit lost, like a guy who was not in the town that he thought he was in. Like Google Maps led him astray.
Oh man, I really want to do like a video segment where you and I like have to enter like a simulation game, but we get the instructions that a City player gets heading into the game, because it's probably like 2 pages, single spaced, printed out, of like do this and then go here, and if he goes there, go that, because you see that, right, when you see the assistant holding the clipboard and the players like putting on his shin pads and kind of nodding along, and I would just want to know how much of that you and I could retain, or if we would just instantly like run out of bounds and do the wrong thing. Because you're right that it is a lot of instructions that can probably be pretty daunting if it's your first game of the season.
Got to talk about Raheem Sterling.
Okay.
In my prediction for the season, I predicted that Guardiola would, make Stones a better player and an England regular, and would kind of be down on Sterling by the end of the season. This first game, Sterling wins a penalty kick after, I think, about 4 minutes.
Yep, that's when the penalty's taken,
Yeah, so Raheem Sterling wins a penalty kick very early in the Guardiola era. So maybe I was wrong. The fact that he started even has me very encouraged for Sterling's prospects under Pep Guardiola, and maybe the guy who is in a bit more trouble is Joe Hart.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a safe bet, especially if you listen to the reports today saying that Claudio Bravo linked with a move away from Barcelona to Manchester City. Joe Hart dropped. Maybe the writing on the wall a little bit. Again, now there's rumors linking Joe Hart with a move to Everton.
Yep.
So it seems like we're going to start seeing a lot more tabloid coverage of the Joe Hart situation.
And I think I saw, I've forgotten the name of the replacement keeper.
Caballero.
I think I saw that Guardiola basically suggested he's better at like passing the ball out the back. It's more about a distribution issue. So, I mean, maybe that means Joe Hart's days are numbered.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking, in a weird way, it's not that big a deal. It's only because he's the England keeper that it's a big deal.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's almost like he was never quite up to that standard.
No, I mean, I don't think of Joe Hart as being good with his feet. I don't think that's really his game.
But like in general, it's not like he's Buffon. You know what I mean? It's not like he's this like undroppable keeper.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I think he is the England number one, and he's been the City number one for a very long time. So it makes sense that it's going to be a major talking point. But it also is kind of makes sense that Guardiola, that almost feels a little bit like, and he's handling it much better, but a little bit like the Mourinho-Schweinsteiger thing, where you're coming in, here's this guy who's been there. Not necessarily Schweinsteiger at Man United, but he's this proven veteran with a lot of experience, and you're coming in sort of being like, not only are you not playing, but you're definitely not playing, and I'm going to say why, and I'm going to make it publicly known that you do not fit what I want, and you're sort of stamping your authority harsh and quickly. You
know what Guardiola's doing as well? He's giving Sam Allardyce a terrible headache for early September, because Allardyce has to pick his first England team, and the question is going to be, are you going to start Joe Hart, and he hasn't played in 3 weeks?
8 million% he starts Joe Hart.
Are you sure?
Think of who Sam Allardyce is. Yes, absolutely.
He may be a fan of Jack Butland at Stoke City.
Oh, no, it has nothing to do with who he's a fan of, but that absolutely feels like an easy PR thing. That you put your arm around the goalkeeper who's been England's number one, and you say, like, I'm backing Joe. He's going to do great.
I don't know what he thinks of him, though. He may not be a Joe Hart fan.
That's true. But I'm still backing the idea that that Big Sam will take that as an opportunity to like put his arm around an England player and say like, "Don't worry, buddy, I've got you. We're gonna bring you back to your glory."
Headlines are Big Sam, Big Heart.
There you go.
The other thing I want to talk about is the most Guardiola thing in this game for me is the 80th minute. So it's 1-1, right? City have scored, Sunderland have scored. It's 1-1. Final 10 minutes. I think most other coaches would be mostly okay with this opening day of the season. Pep Guardiola takes out his left back, Gael Clichy, sends in Iheanacho, and goes with a back three, and it's really a back one because it's just John Stones stays home and Sanya and Kolarov get forward. Everybody pushes up on top of Sunderland. He absolutely rolls all the dice he has in his pockets.
Yep.
And it comes off.
He's got one of the Magic the Gathering dice?
Yeah.
Is it Magic the Gathering or is it, what's the other one? The one that, I forget.
Dungeons and Dragons?
Thank you. That's the one. I think that one might be the one with all the dice. But either way, he's got one of those where it's got all the different sides, and he rolls that big one.
So I don't really know these things, but I think Magic the Gathering is cards, and Dungeons and Dragons is dice, and the Dungeon Master with the big board.
How much of this is based on Community?
Quite a lot.
That's what I figured.
Quite a lot. But yeah, he goes back three. Only Stones really staying back.
Yep.
And then for the last 10 minutes, Man City are camped out on the edge of Sunderland's area, and the ball is being passed like across the top, and like they're picking, trying to find a way. It reminded me of so many Barcelona games, so many Bayern Munich games, and eventually they force that late winner. I think it's Jesus Navas gets across. Iheanacho causes trouble with Manone at the near post. Ball goes to the far post, where McNair beats Delph to the ball, but also heads it in on his debut.
That'll work. Yeah, it's pretty. And the late winner, I think, and like the kind of dramatic. You believe that, like even when Sunderland got their goal, I still had this like, yeah, but Pep will find a way. That's kind of where I am with Pep Guardiola. So that was very Pep for me as well.
But are you with me in that, like, most other coaches, regular Premier League coaches, wouldn't have taken that huge gamble in the last 10 minutes? You'd have taken, I think most would be like, I'll take a 1-1 draw at home opening day of the season. Let's not risk too many things.
Yeah, I would agree, but I would also say that speaks as much to how much confidence the board has placed in Pep as much as it is Pep's managerial abilities. Because I think what you're talking about, though, is like, for example, like Brendan Rodgers, when he's managing Liverpool, might not risk it because he doesn't want a loss. Whereas Pep Guardiola, I think, is sort of like, meh, what are they going to do?
But, I mean, yeah, that's true, right? Yeah. But if it's like Barcelona against a team that finished where Sunderland finished last year in La Liga, and it's Bayern Munich against a team that finished where Sunderland finished, which is, 17th, I believe, maybe 16th?
That sounds about right.
Only just almost not relegated.
There we go.
Right? Then you really push it and go after it. And I feel like he treated Sunderland the same way he would have treated one of those teams.
Eibar. Yes, I agree. Yes. Yeah, that makes sense to me. That makes sense. I have to ask you, well, I guess maybe we can talk about it after Chelsea play, but I'm curious for you if there was one manager in particular that was like really strange for you, like a surreal moment where seeing them manage in the Premier League. Have you had any of those so far? Or is it just sort of like, that makes sense?
Still weirdly, Mourinho managing Manchester United felt odd. Guardiola in the Premier League didn't feel odd because it's been coming for so long, right? That Man City move has been coming for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
Klopp last season was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, strangely, I feel like Conte is going to be odd for me
to
see.
Yes,
that's the one. Yeah, but, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Of course, Lyndon Gooch played for Sunderland.
Yes, of course.
In this game. US Under-20 International. We will talk more about Lyndon Gooch in the scouting reports later in today's show. I kept a close eye on Gooch's performance against Manchester City.
I like this plan. But since we've already started talking about Mourinho, should we talk about United's win?
Yeah, so he had the Community Shield last weekend, beat Leicester. This weekend, Mourinho and his Manchester United team beat Bournemouth 3-1, which I think, ironically, may be the exact same result that happened when Van Gaal faced Bournemouth on the last day of last season.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll take it.
So actually no better, but way better.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with that because you did see lots of little moments. At least I did as a Manchester United fan. I don't know if you did as a neutral, but it felt like there were those lots of little moments where it's like the guy picks the ball up and rather than looking for the pass, moves forward 10 yards and sprints forward 10 yards and plays that kind of direct ball that you wouldn't have had last season.
Bit more direct, bit more risk-taking.
Yep.
Yeah.
And one of the players that I think stood out in that regard was actually Eric Bailly, the center back, who I believe was man of the match in the game. Mourinho had the quote afterwards that like it was unlikely he was going to start because he had injury concerns the whole week. So I think he said 85% of the man of the match award should go to the physios. But there was a ball early on where he basically plays it out of the back as a center back and chips it over the Bournemouth front four and into the path of a Man United outside back sprinting forward. And just moments like that where I felt like it was a bit more direct, but direct with a purpose and not just hoofing it long in those last gasp desperation moments. It felt like a very different approach from Manchester United.
The other thing that people talked about going into it is Zlatan and Rooney, and can they play together? And the answer was, at least to my eyes, not only can they play together, they can score together.
That sounds weird, but yes, I know what you mean.
But exactly that happened, right?
Yeah, I mean, they both got on the score sheet, and they both, I think you pointed this one out, did a good job of alternating who was dropping off and who was showing for the ball, so it wasn't the two of them both making the same runs every time.
So it's theoretically Zlatan as your point man and Rooney in behind him, but so often Zlatan Ibrahimovic comes deep to get the ball, so often Rooney comes deep to get the ball, and I did see moments of them both doing it at the same time, which is a little worrying. But even when that happened, you had Mata on the right and Martial on the left sort of going into that space left behind. So I'm starting to think it may even be part of the plan for them to both vacate space and then for Mata and Martial to enter that space.
That could well be. I think it was more for me, and that might be part of it, but personally I was I enjoyed seeing that it seemed like they had started to figure out a rhythm a little bit, because in the Community Shield, one of the kind of negative points was that they seemed like they were very disconnected. The passing wasn't very good between Zlatan and Rooney, and it seemed like maybe that was a problem that was going to need to get ironed out very quickly if United were hoping to get a good start to the season, and it seems like that's something that has gotten a lot of attention in training.
You know whose passing wasn't very smooth, but he ended it with 2 assists?
Who's that?
It's Anthony Martial.
Okay.
The 2 clumsiest assists I've ever seen. The first one is a left-footed volley. He's definitely going for goal.
Yeah.
Strikes it into the floor. It bounces so high that Rooney has time to watch it come down and then head it in.
Yep.
His second assist, he is definitely dribbling across the top of goal, takes a heavy touch that runs into the path of Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who then fires it into the bottom corner.
It's just a decoy touch, man. Why you got to be so negative, huh? Yeah, and I do want to say that was a bit of a heavy touch, but the finish from Zlatan was one that I must say I enjoyed, because it is at 25 yards out. He picks that spot, and it is kind of what I would say sets him apart than some of the strikers United had last season, because even, say, Marcus Rashford came in, got the goals, but I would say didn't look likely that he was going to score from 25, 30 yards out. I'll also say a player that I thought was pretty surprising for me. Do you know Marouane Fellaini's passing statistics?
I'm guessing pretty good. They're always pretty solid, right? I'm going to say 96%.
Higher. He went 75 of 76, which I think is like 98.1% passing. And again, that's a bit more direct, a bit more forward passes than it was just passing to Ander Herrera, passing out to like a center back. So maybe he is becoming a Mourinho player, and I think that's something that a lot of people, myself included, will be surprised by.
I think he always was.
You think?
Yeah. I think he's always the type of player that Mourinho appreciates.
Oh, the type of player, huh? What are you trying to say by that?
Well, that he's a big physical presence, and he's not going to give the ball away cheaply.
This is true.
And I think if you play him in a role week in, week out, that sort of deeper midfield role, I think he'll do really well.
There we are.
Another guy who a lot of people thought was not a Mourinho player, turns out he is, Juan Mata.
Yep.
So everybody was talking about how Juan Mata was going to pack his suitcases, and Mourinho had this great post-match comment after Mata scored. I'll be interested to read the papers tomorrow.
Yeah, he said I usually avoid them, but tomorrow I might look for them. And I couldn't tell if he was trying to say because I want to read them say Mata is great and he and Mourinho are friends.
I think that was it.
Or if maybe there was a little bit of the I want to see what story you guys create next, because there was a little bit of an element of bitterness that everything's fine and you guys just keep making up drama. Even though I pulled off a player for another player who's 1 inch taller than him to defend set pieces? ?
So Mata's goal,
Yep.
Most of the credit has to go to Bournemouth right back Simon Francis, who plays the ball.
I'm guessing he won't claim that one, but sure.
He plays the ball back to Artur Boruc, too short. Boruc gets out, makes the save, and then Francis touches the ball again into the path of Mata, who scores. What I'm saying is Simon Francis has made Artur Boruc's Friday Rage list.
I missed the Friday Rage list. It was so good.
I just don't know if Francis is above or below Corn. If no one's read the blog Dirty Tackle, obviously recommend go read that. Brooks Peck is a magnificent soccer writer.
Was it all in caps? I feel like it was always all in caps.
Oh, Artur Boruc's Rage list was always in caps.
the Rage list.
So there you go. Great start for Manchester United. Yep. The future is Zlatan and Rooney.
Yeah, I think so.
At least for now.
At least for this season. And then maybe one more. So stayeth his 1-year contract with an option for another year.
All right, Taylor. Today's show is sponsored by the good people at Mack Weldon, a returning sponsor. Mack Weldon, their clothes are better than what you're wearing right now.
Yeah, they are. And those clothes could be socks, they could be underwear, they could be shirts, they could be hoodies, they could be polo shirts, which we both wear to the point where we have to clarify which one of us is wearing it on that given day.
I got compliments on mine Friday evening.
And I got compliments on mine last night. So there we go. Not a joke. It really did. Yeah, and that's because it does. I think you were the one to point this out to me, that I think order a size up, but they're still really nicely cut. So they kind of have that looseness. It's not the really tight cut, but they also look quite nice and still are form-fitting.
Yeah, so if you are one of those people who works out regularly and is super muscly, you can buy it sort of the regular size and it's going to look good on you. If you're like Taylor and I...
I was wondering where you're going to go with that.
I mean, we're semi-athletic, right? We still play soccer. We're still doing pretty much fine. But,
Pretty much fine?
I'm just saying.
My goodness.
There are some things we need to hide. And Mack Weldon, the shirts do a great job. If you order one size up, it it's not big and baggy, but it's also not too tight.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You got that. You got the antimicrobial silver line technology that keeps you from stinking. That's always a good thing.
I don't think that's their official copy point, but yes.
I'm taking it. And there were a lot of players who did not stink this weekend. So should we get to who our Mack Weldon player of the weekend was?
Yes. My Mack Weldon Premier League player of the weekend is Juan Mata.
Ooh.
It's Juan Mata just for the storyline of everybody saying he's out, he's out, he's out. Now he's in, he's in.
Yep.
He chased down that Simon Francis pass, not once, but twice. He also got the back heel down the line to, I believe, Antonio Valencia to set up United's second goal.
He is good. He is good, young Mr. Hugs.
Mr. Hugs.
Still his nickname is just Hugs.
Is it really?
Yep. Well, for Man United fans, I think it is. We've entered a surreal world here because you've gone Man United. I'm going Liverpool because I'm saying Felipe Coutinho. And it was tough because
for which of the many reasons?
Yeah, well, first of all, I wanted to give it to Sadio Mane because I do want to continue to say that I think he's going to have an amazing season for Liverpool. But Coutinho is just that player that, like, you kind of forget, even while you're acknowledging how good he is, because there's so many other little elements going on with Liverpool and new players and what's happening here and what's happening there. And then Coutinho, through all of it, is the player that is linking attacks, playing balls that he has no business playing and pulling them off, and hitting free kicks that he has no business hitting. Even the commentators were saying, like, I did not think he would shoot from that far out.
Yeah, we haven't really talked in detail about that free kick.
Nope.
It's more like, we talk a lot about how there are tricks and, you have someone in the wall blocking the view or whatever. Coutinho really does just step up and bend that high and into the very, very top corner.
Yeah.
He gives Petr Cech no chance at all.
And if you look at that goal, an amazing goal, you see his celebration, which is rightfully so elation of like I can't believe it, and I kind of believe that I made this free kick. Compare that to his second goal, Liverpool's third, and it's just more of like, yeah, this is what we do. And it was it was still a strong celebration, but I do put stock in that like the way players react and the way players interact. And we talked about it with Klopp, where if you over-celebrate, it can be a problem. And continue with that goal. It's a really smart run. It's a good finish. He makes youngsters look foolish. But by the same token, he's just sort of like, yeah, let's keep going. Like, this is what we do. It's a very, like putting your foot on the ball, calming everybody down, saying, like, I got this, don't worry about it. And I think for that reason, he's kind of that veteran presence, even if I think you wouldn't think of Felipe Coutinho as a veteran.
I bet he's under 25.
Yeah, but I still think of him as like that kind of proven veteran for this team.
He also had for the Lallana goal, I think it's his outside of the foot pass that fools everybody to set Wijnaldum down that left wing.
Number one, I knew it was. Number two, I knew that you wanted to talk about it. Without us even talking about it, I just know that you love a Coutinho outside of the foot pass. So I had a feeling you'd bring it up.
It's kind of like his trademark. I'm kind of willing to go with you now and say that Coutinho is my Mack Weldon Premier League player of the weekend, just for the outside of the foot pass.
And somewhere, Juan Mata, a single tear rolls down his cheek.
He'll be fine.
Yeah, I think so.
He's been through worse.
I think he'll be all right, yeah. So, yes, congratulations to, I guess, Felipe Coutinho as our Mack Weldon Player of the Week. TSS listeners, if you would like to check out what Mack Weldon has on offer, you can by going to their website,
MackWeldon.com, MackWeldon.com. I'm in charge of spelling.
And if you so choose to order something, you can use the promo code
TSS.
There we are, at checkout to get 20% off your first order.
Thank you to Mack Weldon for sponsoring today's episode of the Total Soccer Show.
There we are. Final segment this evening, Mr. Grove?
Final segment is the TSS Scouting Network.
Might be worth noting at this point, since I just said this evening, we're recording this on Sunday night.
Yeah, well, it was, I think, opening Premier League weekend. Yep. There's so much going on. We wanted to make sure that by Monday morning, people wake up, they'll have our sort of full review of all the action from the opening weekend of the Premier League.
Especially since you put out that Twitter question asking where do most people listen. We got a lot of responses saying, like, walking the dog in the morning or driving to work in the morning, getting ready for work in the morning. So it seems like maybe, Mondays are rough. So you want something early to get you going. Hopefully this can be that.
All right, our first scouting report comes from Justin Herring. Justin Herring is scouting Lyndon Gooch. And I don't believe he was expecting Gooch to play the opening game of the Premier League because no one else was.
Yep.
Right? Okay, Justin reports that he turned on Man City Sunderland to watch the first league game with Pep in charge and was surprised to find that his scoutee Lyndon Gooch was in the starting lineup for Sunderland. Gooch played 65 minutes, picked up a yellow and had at least one great moment where he drove to the end line and then played a dangerous ball in that was nearly knocked home. I can confirm the scouting report because I saw the same thing happen.
Very exciting for Lyndon Gooch. Less exciting for fans of Americans playing soccer. Because Lyndon Gooch, the only American to play in the Premier League this weekend, CCV
Cameron Carr-Vickers?
Yeah, made the Tottenham 18. He was on the bench. He did not play. Outside of that, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Grove, I don't believe any American made the 18 for a Premier League team this weekend.
Jeff Cameron was on the bench for Stoke City.
Okay.
Didn't get on the field. Brad Guzan was not even second choice keeper for Middlesbrough. I believe Victor Valdez started.
He did. So maybe there's an injury there. Maybe there's like some fitness concerns. Who knows? But
Gideon Zalalem, I think there's been no rumours of a move away from Arsenal on loan. Did not make the 18 for Arsenal versus Liverpool. And there are midfielders to come back into that Arsenal team. So now I think we are thinking about a loan for Mr. Zalalem.
DeAndre Yedlin, not in the 18 either for either Tottenham or Sunderland.
And Donald Love played right back for Sunderland in this game. I think he's a Moyes ex-Man United favourite, right?
Yep.
Have I got that right with Donald Love?
Yeah, coming through the academy for Man United, yeah. And then the final one that I think I was really sad about because I wanted to be wrong, but Emerson Hyndman not in the Bournemouth 18. And I wasn't that surprised given the number of midfielders in front of him, but I think a lot of people, like we had some people send in their predictions that he would start 25 games for Bournemouth this season.
Well, there's 37 to go.
Yeah, there's still plenty of time, don't get me wrong, but it was a bit of a bummer because it means that maybe he hasn't impressed that much in preseason training, or maybe he just doesn't quite have the backing of the manager yet.
Well, can we focus then on Lyndon Gooch?
Yes.
Because I had a really good long look at Gooch playing for Sunderland against Man City. I think there's plenty of reasons to be excited about him as a US national team prospect. Okay, so he's 20 years old. He started on the left wing for Sunderland in this game against City. He didn't have any magnificent moments. He did have that one drive to the end and low cross, but in like 60-something minutes of action, that's not a great deal of threat.
Right.
He only had 5 completed passes out of 8.
Yep.
So, not magnificent stats. But he did work very, very hard as part of Sunderland's defensive scheme. And I feel like it's a thing that you can't necessarily track stats-wise, but he ran up and down that left flank and did a really good job of coming inside when Sunderland were trying to get men in the middle and going outside when they needed pressure out wide and tracking Sanya and Sterling up and down the flank.
I'll say 1 for 4 on crosses, 2 for 3 on take-ons. So at least
you've been looking at the stats as well.
I have. So at least for a youngster, he is trying to take people on. He is trying to create some opportunities, even if the passing stats maybe aren't the best.
The good news to me is it means that David Moyes trusts Lyndon Gooch to do a defensive job when there's a game against a really, really high-end opponent. You know what I mean? That puts him in a good position, in my opinion.
It does.
Because they're going to play mostly teams that are better than them.
I also wanted to point, I should have brought this up when we were talking about Man City, and you asked about if this was a Pep Guardiola team. And I think it also helps frame Lyndon Gooch's stats. I'll just go with completed passes. How many completed passes do you think Man City had? If you had to guess.
600?
585.
Ooh.
How many do you think?
Credit for the very close guess.
How many do you think Sunderland had?
200.
104.
Wow.
Yes, so there you go.
So as a percentage, that's quite a lot.
Exactly, that's my point. It's not so bad when you look at the sheer volume of what happened in that game.
But you take my point that maybe Gooch will be involved going forward because Moyes trusts him to do a defensive job, which is not really what you normally trust young players to do.
No.
Right?
But but then if you look at Moyes, maybe Donald Love in there, Adon Januzaj in there. Now we've got Lyndon Gooch. Maybe he is trying to go for that youth movement, and that's where we can rest assured that maybe we'll be some more Americans getting in there.
I'm sure Mr. Jurgen Klinsmann paid some attention to Gooch's 60-something minutes for Sunderland this Premier League weekend.
Do you know? Is he one of those that has eligibility elsewhere? Does he have Irish eligibility?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
No.
All right. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better.
Well, maybe we'll ask Justin Herring to look into that. Do we need to cap Lyndon Gooch ASAP?
Yes.
All right, elsewhere, Taylor. More scouting reports?
Yeah. Up next, we have Mason Holgate, scouted by Benjamin Tondera. Benjamin says, after an impressive preseason, it sounds like 19-year-old Mason Holgate is set to make the Everton first team. We can confirm that.
Yeah, when did Benjamin send this?
I'm going to guess before Mason Holgate started Everton's opener against Tottenham.
Is Benjamin a precog?
I think basically he's doing his scouting research. Saw him play in the preseason, saw him play in Wayne Rooney's testimonial match when Wayne Rooney said some nice things about young Mason and said, yeah, maybe he's going to get some minutes. And right he was.
So, yeah, I saw this game. It was the first game I saw of the season because, like I said, I overslept for Hull City Leicester. Everton played a back three. And Mason Holgate was in it. He was sort of like right centre-back. It had me confused for a little while. Really bold move from Ronald Koeman. And he had Everton pressing on Tottenham and it kind of mostly worked.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, but first, finish your thoughts about the overall game, because I have individual questions for you.
Oh, is there going to be follow-up questions?
Yeah, it's a quiz.
Okay. Yeah, the game finished 1-1. Started with a free kick from Ross Barkley that was one of those, like, it's a cross, but it's also on target, and then no one touched it and it went in. Didn't stop Ross Barkley celebrating.
It did not.
And good for him.
And did you celebrate his one interception in this game?
I didn't see it happen. I did not see it happen. But yeah, my preseason prediction was Ross Barkley would average an all-time high of 1 interception per game as part of Ronald Koeman's new sort of more aggressive pressing manoeuvre for Everton. Koeman said afterwards he was kind of impressed with Barkley, but he has work to do defensively. To offer more defensively.
Yep.
So I think it's a work in progress, but it's a work that I'm willing to check in on.
All right. Well, that's actually what I wanted to ask you about, was kind of the English tint to this game.
Yeah.
Because you did have Ross Barkley, who's a player that I know that you've been a big fan of for a very long time. You've also been a little bit on that Harry Kane hype train, because he is that prolific English forward, English goal scorer.
Yeah.
That's my question for you, is were you at all disappointed with what you saw from Mr. Kane in this game?
I was, and I couldn't help but notice that Spurs it wasn't connecting until Kane came off and new Spurs striker Vincent Janssen came on. They equalised after Janssen entered.
Yes.
And Kane left. So it's got me a little worried. I do also think there's maybe a big Spurs hangover from Euro 2016. That Iceland defeat, I think, hit Kyle Walker, Danny Rose, Eric Dyer, Dele Alli, Harry Kane, all got hit kind of hard by that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. But I think it's also worth noting that Harry Kane has sort of been like the one holding it all together up top for so long that it almost seems like he's like Band of Brothers, when it's Easy Company are holding it together, and finally they're relieved. And I think Janssen is that relief. He's come in and he gives Harry Kane, a 20-minute break here and there.
Yeah.
Maybe Janssen starts some games.
What if he gives him 90 minutes relief on weekends?
Well, I think you will see a little bit more rotation there, because I think Harry Kane has just played so many games these past 2 seasons, and then having the Euros in between, having so much pressure on him, that I think it's like I'm willing to give Harry Kane the benefit of the doubt and give him a pass, even for the first 5 games of this season, because I think he's done so much for Spurs, emotionally and statistically. And then I think also just from a sheer games standpoint, it makes sense to say, maybe he's tired, let's give him a rest and see what happens.
He also had a slow start to last season.
Yeah.
I remember that, but then he finally started scoring again.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there was the whole, there was the clock watch on who would score first between, what was it? It was him, and it was Wayne Rooney, and maybe Walcott, or was it Giroud? It was somebody else who I think it was.
Mostly England forwards.
Yes, yeah, I think that might have been what it was.
Pivoting back to young Mr. Mason Holgate. There is trouble on the horizon, right, in the form of big Welsh defender Ashley Williams.
Yes.
He has signed for Everton. This is official, right?
Yes.
So he could be elbowing Mason Holgate out of the starting 11 sometime soon.
He could, and then the that's bad news is part of the reason Benjamin was saying why Mason was in this lineup. That's right, we're on first name basis, is because Phil Jagielka has been slow getting back to fitness. But there are rumors linking Jagielka with a move to Sunderland, with Lamine Kone, Sunderland's defender, coming the opposite way.
Okay.
So it's also a situation in which one defender is leaving, but it's a defender that he might have been ahead of, and then another defender is coming in who he will be behind. So we'll see what happens with young Mr. Holgate.
All right, 2 more scouting reports. Up next, we have Kate Bochenek, who is scouting young Timothy Fosu-Mensah. Now, this is a young Manchester United player close to your heart. Kate says
that Timothy Fosu-Mensah has been out of preseason with an injury. I filled in because Gerald dropped his paper. But Jose Mourinho has said he is almost back to full fitness amid a mass exodus of academy products from Old Trafford, such as Paddy McNair, score of the own goal for Man City / against Sunderland, and Donald Love. Timothy Fosu-Mensah is rumored to be signing a new long-term contract. There has not been any talk about a loan move away, but Timothy Fosu-Mensah probably can't expect too many first-team minutes either. Not to wish injury on anyone, says Kate, but here's hoping a spot somehow opens up for him.
Somehow.
I think it will. I do think he'll get minutes this season. Because he also seems like a Mourinho player who's young, who will do what he's told, can be versatile, and can very much focus on defence.
Okay, but we're not hoping for any injuries, right?
No.
Except to Belgian Spurs centre-back, so that Cameron Carter-Vickers can take his rightful place at the heart of Spurs defence.
Yes.
Final scouting report today comes from Evan Cameron. Evan was scouting, or is scouting, I apologise, Kyle Kopp, who was with Swansea City.
Yes.
Evan says...
This is a series of sad reports, this one.
My dear clubless scouty Kyle Kopp is now on the verge of joining League Two side Yeovil Town. Mm-hmm. The Glovers manager, Darren Way, had some glowing words to share about the new signing, including, I want to see if he can handle first-team football, and our bench looks a little light at the moment. Interestingly, the deal has not been finalised because transfers from Welsh clubs into the Football League, but below the Premier League, count as international transfers, and Kopp's international clearance is still pending. At the very least, now that he's joined House Glover, there will be Game of Thrones jokes to be made.
Always looking for that silver lining is Evan Cameron.
I will say, if Kyle Kopp falls too much lower, and maybe his career, maybe he finds a second career, for example, we will be willing to assign Evan Cameron a new scoutie.
Evan said he's happy to stick with him for now, especially since it seems that maybe there will be some video of him that he can watch, since there wasn't much from Swansea's reserve team training.
I selected Kyle Kopp for Evan specifically because he looked like a promising prospect.
Yeah.
I guess you just never know.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Just to clarify, you selected this player because he looked like a promising prospect?
Yeah.
So all the other ones you selected in the scouting network, you selected because they were not promising?
Evan specifically asked for a Swansea player.
Oh, okay, there we go.
I looked at Swansea Academy players and was like, okay, this guy could make the jump.
Gotcha.
And he's made the jump downwards to Yeovil Town.
The hop down, yeah.
Well, I hope that international transfer goes through. Can we confirm that if you transfer from an English Premier League team to it's the other way around, a Welsh Premier League team to an English Football League team, that you need an international transfer?
I cannot confirm that, but I'm happy to say, sure, why not?
We'll look into that after the show.
We will. So coming up this week, since we're coming to the end of the show, worth noting we've got official referee consultant to the Total Soccer Show, Scott Zawatsky.
Yes.
Coming up on Tuesday's show. So if you have any questions, any refereeing questions that have been eating a hole in your brain, you can send them in.
Doctor.
That's number one. Number two, you should send them in via email or Twitter, and we will ask Scott some of those questions on the show.
Yeah, maybe if you send them via email, use the subject line referee question.
Yep.
Yeah, just so we can easily find those emails, because our inbox is kind of busy at the moment. If you send them on Twitter, maybe hashtag referee question.
Yeah.
So that we can easily find
ref
those.
question? We'll save you a few characters.
All right, hashtag ref question on Twitter.
Beautiful.
All right, thank you again to Mack Weldon for sponsoring today's episode. You go to mackweldon.com, coupon code TSS gets you 20% off. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. If you would like to join the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network, have your own young player to scout, hopefully his career goes upwards, not downwards.
Upwards, not downwards, forwards, not backwards, and always twirling towards victory.
Towards the Champions League.
There we go.
You can go to totalsoccershow.com/subscribe. Subscribe to the show with a monthly contribution. It helps us keep the show going. It's the reason we're here for 5 days a week, delivering regular content. It's all thanks to our subscribers and our scouts. If you do that, we'll assign you a young player to scout. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the support, and we will talk to you again on Tuesday.